A very good morning, dear students. As a part of e-learning program, till now we have discussed two sessions about the casting procedures that involves the definitions of the casting procedures, then the, the important requirements of the sprue, attachment of sprue location, and attachment of about the crucible former, the types of casting rings, and the purpose of placing the casting ring liner, and all these aspects was discussed in the previous session. Now today's session will be on the investing and burnout procedures, and investing procedure of two types. The old traditional method is a hand mixing investing method, and the other technique is vacuum mixing. The advantage with the vacuum mixing method is the mixing will be uniform, and we get the homogeneous mix of the investment material. Air bubble entrapment or the errors in the casting will be very much minimized. Whereas the hand mixing investing method, though it is a very uh, cost free, we don't need much of expensive equipment for mixing the investment material. That also works out well if all the principles of the investing techniques is followed. Whichever technique we follow, whether it is a hand mixing technique or the vacuum mixing technique, the final motto of the investing method is a void free casting or the bubble free casting. Now here we need to understand one important aspect. The preparation of a tooth intraorally by using the high speed rotary instruments, as well as capturing that intraoral tissue details with the impression material and making of the wax pattern. For that we use different types of pattern waxes, for example inlay wax, and transferring that wax pattern into a metal with the help of investing technique. All these procedures happens in a micron level, so not even a millimeter. Even a disparity of a little amount of a couple of microns also cause a distortion of the wax pattern or the distortion of the impression or the distortion of the casting. So any aspect is ignored in this series of procedures, that restoration definitely will not fit into the patient's mouth, and it is very difficult to adjust that restorations once we don't understand where the procedure went wrong. That's why each and every aspect in crown and bridge prosthodontics that includes these casting procedures are important. When we select for the hand mixing investing method, we need to have a flexible ball and spatula. In that, the required amount or the proportion of the liquid and powder is taken and mixed with a flexible spatula. If we are using the faucet bonded investment, colloidal silica will be the one of the content of that particular liquid. The mixing is done with appropriate ratio, and smooth and gentle circular movements are given in the ball, and we always try to avoid the entrapment of the air in the mixture. Once the smooth consistency of investment material is obtained, with a small instrument or a brush or applicator tip, little amount of investment material is taken and it is applied over the painted over the wax pattern all around. That makes the elimination of the air bubble which is adhered or placed over the wax pattern. Once we paint the wax pattern with investment material, in later stages the casting ring is positioned and the remaining portion can be filled with a remaining investment material. The another technique is the vacuum mixing or the vacuum investing technique, to which we need to have a special equipment that's called vacuum mixing device. The vacuum mixing device will have a multiple units that includes a closed ball, vacuum pump or evacuating pump, mixing pad, then electric motor which generates which makes a spatula to rotate, and a platform. So whenever we use this equipment for mixing the investment material, initially the prescribed ratio of liquid and powder will be taken in the bowl, and initial mixing is performed with the spatula with the hand mixing, and later the special ball will be fixed into the evacuating pump along with the lid. So this evacuating pump or the vacuum pump eliminates or sucks out air entrapped into the investment material. Then automatically with the electronic motor, the mixing pad or the spatula which is inbuilt into that motor will start rotate, and after a couple of minutes, as per the manufacturer prescribed time, within the manufacturer prescribed time, the homogeneous consistency of the investment material will be attained. With these, most of the complications related with the casting procedures, that is the air bubble entrapment or the metallic nodules, can be eliminated. After knowing about the investing procedures, either manual method or hand mixing method or the vacuum mix technique, the next point to be discussed is shrinkage compensation, or also called as the casting shrinkage, or can be called as a compensation of casting shrinkage. This is a very tricky aspect to understand about the metals. To understand about the casting shrinkage or the compensation of the casting shrinkage, we need to recall certain aspects of the physics, that is the state or the matter. Any liquid or gaseous state or the solid state, any object we take, whether it is a liquid or the metal, they all maintain their position or they all maintain their stable shape by means of a proper establishment of the arrangement of atoms within that material, by maintaining the proper interatomic distance, by establishing the interatomic repulsion or the contraction. All the molecules are settled in one particular shape. This is what happens generally in metals. That's why they are more stable. When we do the casting procedure, when I subject a piece of gold or a piece of nickel chromium alloy and I apply the temperature up to 1500 or 2000 or 2500 degree temperature, by this external force or by this external stimulation, that is temperature, every molecule present in that particular object, that metal piece, start vibrating. That is called kinetic energy. So every molecule start vibrating and start breaks the interatomic distance by means of change of their state or the position. In that way, every molecule present in that metal field start flow freely. So this is the state where that metal piece converts from solid state to the liquid state. When the metal becomes a liquid state and start flow, this is the particular state we perform the casting procedure. So we made that molten metal flow into the empty space of that mold space, and once the metal occupies the empty space in that mold, they slowly start settle down, temperature cools down, and every molecule in that empty space, the metal starts re-establishing the interatomic distance as well as the repulsion, and the interatomic distance will be properly maintained, again re-established. So in this process, the metal start showing some amount of shrinkage, that is called a casting shrinkage. This is always happens with the metal. So the molten alloy used for the dental restoration or the dental casting tends to shrink upon the solidification. Gold alloys shows around 1.5% of shrinkage, and nickel chromium or cobalt chromium shows even little more, that is 2.4 percentage. So hence the investment material or the mold is correspondingly made into little larger size than the original size of the wax pattern, so that the final casting will be exactly fits on the prepared tooth. Otherwise, if investment material expansion doesn't happen and the casting shrinkage happens in as usual way, the restoration, the final resultant casting or the restoration will be in smaller size based on the metal we use. It will be either 1.5% of smaller size or 2.5% of smaller size, and these smaller castings or the restorations will not fit into the prepared cavity or over the prepared teeth. So that's why, to keep by keeping this, the solidification, casting solidification nature of the metal, the mold which we use or the investment material we use need to be expand correspondingly. So the expansion of the investment material can happen in different ways. There are different concepts based on the setting nature of the investment material. The investment expansion can be a normal setting expansion, or sometimes we can follow the concept of the hygroscopic expansion. For that we need to incorporate little amount of excess liquid or the water for to achieve expansion of the particular mold or the investment material. Then followed by either wax pattern expansion, which is not at all recommendable, which is outdated. Then finally the thermal expansion. The thermal expansion is supposed to be the most important aspect, the most commonly followed mode of expansion in the investment material to compensate the casting shrinkage. After the investment procedure gets over either by hand mixing or the vacuum mixer technique, the mold is left aside at least of 1 to 1.5 hours for the complete setting of the investment material. Later that mold is investment mold is transferred into the burnout furnace or the oven for the burner procedure, which is approximately happens around 900 degree for 20 minutes. Then later the temperature is slowly raised up to 1290 degree Fahrenheit or 700 degree centigrade and held it for 30 minutes. The important point to be remembered here is the gypsum board investment for making the gold casting need to be maintained in this 1290 degree centigrade or the 700 degree centigrade, not beyond that temperature, because the sulfur and the chlorine present in that gypsum bonded investment material may contaminate the gold castings and may cause a corrosion or formation of the oxide layer over the casting. Whereas if the nickel chromium or cobalt chromium castings are doing by using the phosphate bonded investment material, the rise of temperature need to be controlled carefully, since the rapid heating of the mold or raise of the temperature may cause the larger castings. That is one type of failure happens generally if we don't control the temperature raising in the burner furnace. So temperature raising need to be controlled properly, and it has to be monitored regularly. After the burner procedure, the next technical aspect is the casting procedure, for which the casting machines are used, and there are different ways, different methods of different equipments are available for the casting procedures. One is based on the method we do the casting, another one is the heating system. Based on the method of casting machine, we can categorize that into centrifugal force casting machines or air pressure casting machines or the vacuum type casting machines. Whereas based on the generation of a heat, we can categorize into torch melted casting machines or induction casting machines or arc melted casting machines. So with this we have finished today three important aspects, that is investment procedure, the understanding about the casting shrinkage and burner procedure, and detailed introduction about the casting equipment. So next section will be on the casting procedures as well as the casting failures. Thank you very much. Have a good day.